Celery is super easy to chop. It's even easier than a carrot, right? Celery is pretty simple. It's just kind of like this weird shape. So there's not a lot you can do with it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to chop off the ends so we get a nice clean cut. Like you can see the ends here is kind of dried out and kind of gross. And these kind of can taste bitter sometimes. So we're gonna actually get rid of a little bit more. These are actually fine if you want to use them in a soup, but if you're actually eating them, they can be bitter. So we've got a couple options for celery. So first, some people like to peel celery, right? Like you just pull the string, you catch it right here at the edge with your fingernail and pull it off. And you can totally do that if you want. I don't bother. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Some people really hate the strings in celery. So if you want to do that, go for it. It's pretty quick. It's not like it's a huge ordeal. I just don't usually bother because I've got enough going on in the kitchen. I don't need to add an extra task. But this is a completely string-free piece of celery now, and it took what, like 10 seconds? So the first way to chop celery is just like a carrot, right? We're just going to chop it straight down. We're going to end up with these little, like they're C shapes, right? Like that's your basic cut. Very simple. Then we're going to try, we can cut them on the bias as well. If you're sauteing celery, like if you're going to just saute it for something else or put it in a mirepoix, you want to create more surface area. So cutting it on the bias is a really good idea to create more surface area. And you just cut it at a slight angle. You can see here, like what angle I'm chopping it at. And the more steep, the more sharp the angle, the more surface area it will have. So here's like our pieces, and I'm going to cut off another piece so you can see exactly the difference in the surface area. So these two pieces of celery were literally cut ½ an inch away from each other. This one has almost twice as much surface area. So if I'm going to saute this for a mirepoix, and I want that mirepoix to be really brown so I get some beautiful flavor out of it, this one's going to taste better because it's got more surface area in touch with the pan. We're going to move these guys over. Another option for chopping celery is to cut it, slice it this way. Now celery is kind of wibbly wobbly, but thankfully it's got these two like kind of, feet, if you will. And those will hold it in place and make it a little bit more stable. But you always want to be careful when chopping celery because it can still wobble on you when you're not paying attention. Like especially celery tends to like lean more in one direction or the other. So you can go like this and you can figure out which direction it's going to like roll in and make sure that is away from your fingers. So we're going to cut this guy in half. And then this is a medium dice for celery. We've got even smaller pieces. They're basically the little half C's. We can go even finer. If we want to do a small dice for celery, so at this point, they're getting kind of rounded. And we don't want to cut it like this because if you look, it's going to be uneven on the knife. So we're actually going to cut this with the tip of the knife and drag it through the celery. Celery is very soft, so it will not give you much trouble. There we go. We've got a little bit there that's a little bit wider. So I'm just going to chop that off with my knife to make it nice and even. Get rid of it. Now we've got two pieces of celery that are pretty even, and we're going to chop them the same width as they are across, and we've got celery medium dice. That looks really good. Or sorry, celery small dice. We can take them even smaller. Like, I don't know why you would want to chop your celery even smaller, but I'll show you how. So we're going to take our knife and drag it through the celery. And the smaller you get, the more precise it gets, and the more likely you are to cut yourself. So I wouldn't go for these fine cuts unless you have had a little practice under your belt. And then we're going to, again, just chop this, chop, 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 in even smaller pieces. And now we've got celery fine dice. But at this point, like, there's really not much to it. Like, if you were to cook this, it would basically vaporize. I guess you could put it in a salad, use this as a garnish. But generally, when you're chopping celery, you're looking for, kind of a medium dice like this, or like a fully sliced version like this.